I make sure my hair looks good. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to their week. Hope everybody's weekend went well. You capped off a Monday. How hard could it have been? If you're still upright and walking, I'd say you did a pretty good job of it. So one of the questions that I've had is, am I going to Mopar Fest? Yeah, going to Mopar Fest. I'm looking forward to it. As a matter of fact, had this contraption over at Houston Raceway Park this past Friday, just in time to get one run in before we got completely washed out. And when I say washed out, man, I'm not kidding. This cell, this weather cell, basically just rolled up and parked itself right on top. Yeah, and then I got to drive home in the rain on a set of ETRs. Not the smartest thing I've done in a long time. I will say this, though, made it home without a scratch or a scathe, and everything worked out just fine, save for the fact that, well, I think I had about the same traction driving home as I did at the drag strip. But, you know, who can really blame them? It's not like anybody was really expecting there to be much of a crowd, and there wasn't. That being said, the car spun its way to about a 164, 162, whatever, 60 foot, and got down the drag strip to the tune of a 1072, I think. So, you know, all in all, the car still made up for it in the past, went almost 105 miles an hour in the 8th. Still not convinced that the traps are absolutely working properly, considering it was showing I only went like 127 miles an hour, which is bullshit. But anyway, doesn't matter. ET looks about right, so I really don't care. But main thing is getting data on the car. Make sure I haven't missed anybody checking in. Fast Man's checking in. What's up, Fast? And the data that I was looking for on the car, well, I was looking at shift points, validating and verifying shift points, because I am going to Mopar Fest. And the second thing was reading knock retard, running it on about 3 gallons of 100 octane to make a half of a tank of gas. So I had a little bit less than half a tank, 3 gallons worth of 100, and that's what gave me the half a tank to get running. And mainly looking at knock retard, 0 knock retard, so could probably come down just a little bit on the fuel mix, but either way, it doesn't matter. Car loved it. The data looks fantastic. In fact, the data was showing the car going through the traps right at 131 miles an hour. That's pretty good considering the density altitude was crappy. It was more like 2,500-ish feet. In this situation, I mean, it was pretty gross. Grains were through the roof. Well, it rained. So, yeah, grains were pretty high. Say what's up to everybody. Argrossi's coming in. Hey, brother, what's up, man? Got the 2 arm flex and thumbs up. I like it. Dr. Dips checking in. B Mason been on a live chat. Get my fix now. Good to see you, and thanks for the advice earlier. No problem, man. Happy to. Argrossi's checking in with pistol grip Rick. I like it. So, oh, got one more. Canada guy. What's going on, my brother? Saying, hey, Brian, how you tonight? Oh man, hope you're having the same. So basically looking at data, that was the main thing, and that's something that I've been keeping an eye on with this car and really following the patterns of fuel quality, basically to talk to you guys about one thing, and that is, you know, when guys are talking about what tune is on their car, really what the difference is and what you're up against with just a stock tune, and actually kind of how aggressive a stock tune is versus throwing more fuel and more timing at one of these cars. So in general, and you guys have heard me say this before, these cars ride the knock sensors pretty hard. And it's not uncommon for a stock car on 93 octane to pull 3, 4, not 4, usually about 3 degrees of timing. You might see 3.5. You don't want to see 4, but usually 3 to 3.5 degrees of timing on 93 octane. With the higher octane fuels, you just don't see that. In fact, you're going to see 0. Now, my knock sensors are not very far away from stock whatsoever, mainly because I don't trust fuel quality. That's been one of the biggest issues and stumbling blocks that I've had when I'm explaining how I go about looking at a tune, or when I'm looking at data logs versus the mods on the car. I'm looking at things that are a little bit scary based on the fuel quality that you're running, and that's why I never recommend going with a 275 upper on one of these things on, well, number one, stock injectors, which is something that I've been seeing a lot of lately, by the way, either personally or through other folks telling me about it on that deal. But the other thing is just watching my car, which is stock boost with actually a little bit more fuel, and watching knock retard on my car and seeing how much of knock I've got based on fuel quality alone. And it's typically been about 2 degrees. And that's one of the issues that I've kind of had, is that guys will say, oh no, you can do all this, that, or whatever to your car. And I'm wondering how much they're actually numbing the knock sensors to the point to where they think that they're quenching this thirst for false knock. And in fact, if you just put a little bit better fuel in the thing and run it and get zero knock, might not have been false. And that's okay. The car, that's what this whole system is designed to do, by the way. The system is designed to take a look at knock. If it gets any hint of knock, it'll pull just a little bit of timing. It typically doesn't affect your ET or mile an hour too much, but the idea is just to have a little bit of a buffer there to protect the car on the fuels that we have to offer. So anyway, I've been hearing all kinds of stuff. 285s, 275s on 91 octane have been kind of common. I've heard of this again, that 317 pulley that apparently doesn't need a tune or whatever. Man, I'm sorry, but just from seeing what I've seen so far, and watching cat overtemp and injector duty cycle and knock retard and everything else, man, there's no amount of money you could pay me to throw one of those pulleys on my car and not put a tune on it, or to try to extract much more than about 730-ish horsepower with the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno. I wouldn't want to try to extract much more than that on 93 octane, at least not on the weights of these vehicles. Not based on what I'm seeing as far as knock retard when I'm running 100 octane gas on a car that is stock and it's still pulling timing, and it doesn't with the race gas. Make sure I'm not skipping over anybody. Codename Scat saying stop by to show the show some love, man. I love it. Thanks, man. Dr. Div saying, hell yeah, fuel quality. That E15 for Pop's car sucked. Yeah, I can only imagine. But I've tested it twice and it was only E10. I think he got a full tank of regular instead. Oh, so that's something else. Something else you have to remember, if you are running 93 octane, your base fuel is really more like 90 octane, and you've got ethanol in there to kick it up that extra 3 points. So if you've got, say, I don't know, 91 octane, and that 91 octane is maybe an older, you're getting out of an older tank or whatever the case is, a bad tank of gas. The problem is a bad tank of 91, you could be putting, I don't know, 88, 89 octane fuel in your car with the ethanol there to kick that octane rating up. That's asking a whole lot out of that type of fuel. I mean, it's already asking a lot out of 90 or 91 with that octane kicker of the ethanol. So there's a good chance. And guys, listen, I know that I can be a bit of a mother hen when it comes to this kind of stuff, but if you're around this stuff, tuning is where I'm going with this. If you're around this tuning or fuel testing or any of that long enough, you'll start to find that there are bad tanks of gas everywhere. You'll start to find that just because you test 93 octane and when you test it, it comes back as 5% ethanol as opposed to 10, it doesn't mean that it's a better fuel. It only means that it has less ethanol in it. You almost want it to be exactly 10%, because at least you've got something in that fuel that has a higher octane that might be able to be a little bit of a buffer. And again, it has more to do with the weight of these vehicles than anything else, but leaning on these things with a potential bad tank of gas, already knowing what the stock timing does or what the stock knock sensors do and how they react on fuel on a stock car even when they're numbed a little bit versus when you put good quality fuel in it, it'll definitely make you think twice. I'll just tell you that. Let's see. Dr. Dave saying gasoline quality always sucks. Reason I like my E and test often so I know it's in my tank. Absolutely. Speed Freak saying hood's up tonight. Revlon looks ready to play, and she is too. JCP281 saying San Antonio has a few ethanol-free pumps. E10 gas keeps getting worse and worse. That is true. We've got one E-free station here. It's a Buc-ee's out in Katy, and it's known. It's a known good quality, regular, good old-fashioned dead dinosaur gasoline. And the guys with power equipment, lawnmowers, weed eaters, stuff like that, they love it. They don't have to worry about bad fuel or fuel going bad. Guys with older cars will actually run out there and stock up on fuel because it's easier for them to do that. They don't have to worry about it. Anyway, for all the right reasons, we've got it down here, but it's in very limited supply. Let's see. Argos is saying she looks like Revlon, no wide body with a 309 diff. Oh, that's right. He's out there looking at a red eye, man. I like it. That'd be the one to get, brother. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you get it. Oh, two fingers crossed. Let's see. Dr. Div saying higher IATs help real knock also. Seems to be the Rams' problem. Reason I got that 5-inch intercooler from Treadson, no doubt, man. Be on the lookout for your knock retard. Always data log. Kay Anthony's checking in. Do you think that the track arms and tubular sway bar links will help with weight transfer on launch if your Mopar is sub 450 horsepower based on weight alone? Not really. I don't have, mine's still all stock and it seems to dead hook just fine. I would like to put a set of either Spawn or BMRs. Probably BMR because they're a little bit quieter. The Spawns just make a lot of racket. But I'm still running the stock on mine and it's doing just fine. Let's see. Symphonics asking, seen any of these new Supras out the track recently? Yes, I have. Some people are claiming with just a 93 tune, they are out pulling full bolt-on 10R85Os. Color me skeptical? Yeah. Skeptical Hippo says no to that, my friend. Fastest one I have seen with just a couple of tickles here and there has been low 12s, but yeah, no. So you're not gonna FBO 5.0 is gonna pretty much chew it up, especially on the big end. But that's not to say that the code's been completely cracked. That's just with pretty decent just yet. Give those guys a little bit of time to get some R&D underneath their wings a little bit, and that car will be off to the races. I have high hopes for that car. XCash saying, hey Mason, I'm thinking of getting this nice yellow 2010 SRT8 Challenger with 40,000 miles. Does the 6.1 have any serious problems or is it a bulletproof engine? I wouldn't call any engine bulletproof, but no, the 6.1 is a very robust platform. I love that engine and I don't know too many people that have ever had any problems with it. So I say buy with confidence and enjoy it because those are fun cars. R. Gibbs saying, check it in, finally catch one live. I like it. Oh, Canada guys checking in with XCash, saying the 6.1's been flawless. R. Rice saying, some great vibes. I'm trying to get it all worked out. Got the arm flex. I like it. Yeah, get that thing figured out, man. I think you'll really like it a lot, man. It's a fun car. I will be data logging and probably doing some touch-up tunes or touch-up tuning to a car at Mopar Fest. It is very much that exact same car, except it's got a 285 upper and it's also a regular body. Fortech checking in and saying, what up, y'all? Thumbs up. Fortech saying, what up, Dodge lovers? I like it. Symphonics, just that there's a channel with the 93 Super pulling C7s and full bolt-on 5.0s. Just some scrub out trying to make a name for himself. Yeah, I don't know, probably. I mean, look, nitrous cures a lot of ills. So, I would say a little bit of a tune, throw a shot of dope at it. You can probably do some work, but the ones that I've seen have not had nitrous. So, one of those cars on nitrous, yeah, sure. I can see it doing some damage to one of those things. But again, I don't know what all he's got. Can't really comment on that. Haven't been paying too much attention to it. I know that's kind of the next big thing, though, too, is the Supra, right? But the problem is that there's the Z4. So what do? I mean, okay, great. We got the Supra, which is, I guess, less expensive. On paper anyway, it makes less power. I don't know how far off that number really truly is, but the way that car is being built, guys are going to start, buying them up, throwing nitrous on them, tunes, cams, heads, bigger turbos, everything else. They're going to do everything under the sun to those things that you can do to any other car. Let's just see how the durability really stacks up. It does have a ZF 8-speed, but I don't know which ZF 8-speed it's got. I'm hoping that it would have an HP70 in it, but I don't know. I haven't really done any research on that thing, but if it does, that would be a pretty cool setup. But I don't know that I would trust it really much over about 600 horsepower to the wheels. Let's see. Canada guy is saying, I've been thinking about a wide body conversion on his SRT8. Any thoughts or suggestions? Anyone? That is a personal preference, and I cannot jump in the middle of that. Riff's checking in and saying, hey, B, what's up, man? Argrossi, if I can land her, you'll definitely see her at some point at Pikes. I like it. Yeah, we just got to say, it's got through doing one real mild setup, 285 upper. I think it put down on that dyno something like 740-ish. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how that car does at the drag strip on Saturday. Let's see. Braxton checking in saying, hey, what's up? Symphonic saying, he's claiming 380 wheel horsepower. And yeah, pulling cars he's got no business pulling. I doubt it very seriously that he's doing that much work with that car just yet. Riff saying, how you doing, IB? I'm doing good, man. Doing real good. Thank you for asking. I go the same as in a car. Why are they rated 360 horsepower? They are the same engine. About 90% of that is the same engine. Basically everything from internally, from the bottom of the block up through the heads is the same. They do have different intake manifolds. The truck has got variable runner length intake where the car does not. That's where some of that power is coming from. But I think the car is a little bit underrated. And I think the truck's pretty much on point where it should be. So hopefully that answers your question. From just a functionality standpoint, they're identical. So, but that's where the difference in power is actually coming from, is that intake manifold. And there's also some cam adjustments in there that are going on in the truck that aren't in the car. Not saying the car is not variable cam, it just doesn't take full advantage of the cam that it's got, because it can't, because it doesn't have the variable runner intake. Rip to say asking, what do you think about the air ride on a Hellcat? We're just going to move right past that quick. Hey, Riff, thank you very much. So if I went with 17s on my Hellcat in the back and shortened the sway bar end links, would they still work for normal tires as well? Yes, they would. And thank you for the contribution. Say, meaning, can I go back to my regular 20-inch Mickey Thompsons with no problem with the shorter end links? Do it all the time with that one right there. Don't even notice a difference. Let's see. Asking again, getting back to... Oh, hang on a second. About the air ride on a Hellcat. Not for any real particular reason, aside from the fact that they come with a pretty aggressive camber from the factory. If you're going to lower the car, it's more of a pain in the ass really with these cars, especially when you consider the fact that it really does start to affect how the car handles. But yeah, I mean, if you mess with the car, drop it too much, camber goes wonky, yeah, it's going to kill your ability to launch the car, but it's going to be more traction based than anything else. Let's see. Hang on just a second. Catalyst is asking question, knowing what you know now, if you're going to buy a new Scat Pack, what options would you get and what mods would you make, if any? Knowing what I know now, it would be a toss-up, but I would go with probably a Scat Pack core. I don't think I would really be a buyer with the 1320. I just don't think there's enough reason to buy a 1320. Other than the fact that I could get one with a rear seat delete. You know what? Let me reset this. I'd go 1320 and get the most base model 1320 I could get. I would then I would yank the intake manifold off of it and I would put one of my ports on it. I would put a Fastman 84 millimeter throttle body on it, Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter, and drag pack, call it quits. I think that'd be a fun package. You could play all day, all night with that thing and have a blast with it. Of course, it would have a tune on it, and an engine tune and a trans tune. But that would be about it. That would be the extent of my mods to the car. I'd leave the cats on it. I just would leave it. That would be the entire package right there. Get out there and run some real low temps with it in some cold air. And again, I'd get the 1320. Either that, you can do the same thing to a Scat Pack core. I would just get the 1320 because you could put the rear seat delete in it. But if you got a Scat Pack core, throw the rear seat delete in it because you can't fold the back seats down anyway, which is a joke. So as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be a rear seat delete car. All right. What do we got next? Come on down. Oh, all right, Rossi say, definitely want to hear about that red-eye track test. Y'all have a good one. Hitting the rack, catch the great chat tomorrow. B, thank you very much, man. I hope to bring you some good data on that car. That should be a lot of fun, actually. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Dimitri's saying, I remember SRT Mush had some air and it did pretty well as long as you set it up. As long as you set the ride height up and you've got your camber more or less straighter than, lowered where it's going to, splay the tires out. Yeah, that's the main thing you got to do. But, if you want to put it on the car, go for it, man. I would just caution about trying to run the car lowered at the drag strip. Let's see. Machine checking in saying, what's good, man? All right, so I've been between the F90 M5 competition and CTS-V. Third gen, feel like Mercedes 63 AMG is going to devalue quicker and heard some turbo issues also. Yeah, anything with Mercedes or BMW or especially Jaguar, Range Rover, anything like that, depreciation is obnoxious. So just watch out for that. If you're asking me which one would I pick over those, probably CTS-V for me on that. Mainly because you can do whatever you want with a CTS-V and it will always have some true value to it. Let's see. Rip is asking, what do you think about those new or newer 7-pound lithium batteries? Are they really worth the weight savings? I don't like the 7-pounders. I've got an Archangel in mine, which weighs 23, 25 pounds. I can't remember off the top of my head now. But anyway, I like that for the capacity. The 7-pound ones, those are just there literally to start the car, and they may get you away with that. But it's a race-only battery. It's not going to give you a whole lot of overhead should you need it. So go with something like the Archangel. I think you'll be a lot better off with that. Let's see. Dr. is saying, so knowing that with race gas in the tank, your knot goes away. Any reason not to go to E85? Yeah, the reason is I don't feel like putting a different fuel system in my car, and I also don't feel like only running the car on E85. I like taking this thing on road trips, and it's more of a convenience thing than anything else. That said, I can extract a decent amount of power out of this car, I'm sure, on E85, but it's just not really worth it to me right now. The convenience is worth more to me than any extra power, any small increase in ET or mile an hour that I get out of it. It's just really not in the cards for the car right now. Now, you also have to remember too that E85 is more beneficial for your car in two separate instances. One, if it's NA and you've got a lot of compression, that's when E85 helps you out. If you've got a boosted vehicle, the more boost you run, the better, but you have to remember that the less boost you run, the less of a benefit you're going to get from it. So, if I decided to start really turning the wick up on the car, then I would want to make the move to 85 because it is a more stable fuel under those types of cylinder pressure conditions. If, on the other hand, I'll leave it stock boost, then it doesn't really do me as much good. And so the difference between gasoline and E85 is going to be smaller than what it would be with more power. Slash is checking in, saying, what up, B? Finally got my Power Stop Z26 in for the Charger Scat Pack from Rock Auto. One of the pads had a 1/4-inch chip on its edge. Wow. I think they're going to send me a new set. Yeah, they should if they came back in that kind of shape. So Fox saying C8 Corvettes are now finally hitting the major publications for testing. Can't wait for more info on that car. Leaked info says it's an 11.3 at $121 in the quarter mile. Sounds about right. And it sounds about on par with what a really fast car right now is going to deliver, especially one, though, that's not making the big power that that car is going to be making, at least not yet. Be on the lookout for something that's going to be really sinister from them when the Z06 comes out. But 11.3, not too shabby. And, of course, with as slippery as that thing aerodynamically is, I bet 121, yeah, there'll be some folks improving on that one. Multiple Mopars. Where you at? Machine saying, do you think Red Eye Charger is a thing? I think it should be a thing, and I think it is coming. It'd be a shame if they don't. The Charger guys have been kind of getting the wrong end of the stick here lately on some of that stuff. So, I don't know. Who else we got chiming in? X is saying, dealer markup is ridiculous right now. It's like when the Hellcat came out all over again. Oh, yeah, for the Vet. I'm sure, you know, there's going to be a lot of dealerships, though, that aren't going to buy into the dealer markup, that add a tag thing that dealers tend to do. There's going to be quite a few guys that won't be able to get their cars basically at sticker. Don't be looking for any discounts just yet. But I'm excited about that car, and I can't wait to see how well it does in real life, just like you guys. Rift is saying, I will say E85 is kind of like having methanol from what I heard, in the sense that it's like a lot cooler burning. At least that's what I've heard. So let me just dispel a couple of things for you. E85 isn't necessarily cooler. You're just introducing more mass into the cylinder, which absorbs more heat. So in that respect, it is kind of cooler, but you need the extra mass in there because it is less energy dense than gasoline is. So in that respect, yeah, it's kind of a double benefit. You get the benefit of extra octane, you get the benefit of slightly cooler, and a third benefit is you are, in a way, artificially increasing your compression ratio because you have crammed stuff into your cylinder that wasn't there before. So there you have it. E85, as far as I'm concerned, E85 is the best thing to ever happen to performance cars because it gives you all those benefits with the added benefit that it is cleaner burning, well, except for NOx, but yeah, who cares? Look, the reality is that it's a cleaner burning fuel than gasoline is, and again, I mean, you get the benefits that you get. Unfortunately, though, you do lose fuel economy, but hey, it's a small price to pay when we're talking about performance cars here. We're not buying these things because they are something dumb. Join the crowd. I do that every day. Cannot hold out. I'm going to do before and after dyno with it to see if it does anything. You might get a little something on a dyno, but real life, you're not going to see anything, man. I've done back-to-back with them, but man, they sound fantastic, so congratulations on that. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and make that sucker sing, man. I think that's more than any reason to have it, just to hear it is well worth it, in my opinion. I've actually thought about getting one just so I can play around to, you know, just get out on the street and make noise with. That's where they're the best at. So I say do it. Let's see. Venice Garage, just heads cam along to my Viper. I'm not buying any new cars. 700 wheel horsepower, 91 octane, 3,400 pound car. Can't justify it. Well, talking to somebody who's owned 3 Vipers, I love them, yeah. And heads cam, long tubes. 700 rear wheel horsepower is not really out of the realm of possibility for those cars. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun in half-mile and mile events, and they're a whole lot of fun with about a 250 to 300 shot of nitrous on top of the stuff that you've just done to it. Because mine would crack right at 1,000 horsepower. That's back when 1,000 horsepower was 1,000 freaking horsepower. Now it's just like, meh, whatever. But yeah, that car was a riot. You do the 100 to 200 sprints. That was a hard car to beat. Wasn't the fastest, but it was very hard to beat. Dogface saying, what up? What up, dog? Riv saying, I still have my C5 Corvette Z51, and I will say I think it's one of the best budget cars to get into racing. They are. It's if it's not at the very top, it's at the top or at least near the top, depending on what kind of racing you're into. But yeah, it's definitely on the podium. Slash is saying, 22,000 on my car, brake pads worn thin. Only installing new pads. Do you think they'll fine? 6-piston? Yeah, they'll be fine. But you will need to get new rotors at the next brake change. Let's see. Dogface saying, mix of 60s and 70s muscle car days. I had a buddy that had a LS6 Chevelle. Very nice. 410 Posse back in the 70s. That thing would blow your grandma's pants off. It wouldn't take much. Both of my grandparents were pretty freaky. At least Nana's were. But yeah, I tell you something. The stuff from the 60s and 70s, that's one thing that comes up a lot. People are surprised by, if you've never ridden in a car from back then, they'll look at the ETs of those cars and go, oh, that car's really not fast by today's standard. It's like, well, yeah, but you're not driving it and you're not experiencing it by today's standards, and nothing runs like a big block from back in the day. They're so much fun, so neat to drive. The old race fuel and a tune for pump gas on the same car. It's not hard at all. It's almost more time consuming than anything else to do it the right way. And then the right way is this. You bring the car to the tuner, a full tank of 93 octane, give the guy enough fuel to where he can make it through his entire tuning session. Get the car off the dyno. You're going to drive it around for a day or two, however long it takes you to burn the rest of the fuel out, get it as low as you possibly can, safely. But still leave about 2 to 3 gallons of the 93 octane in the thing, and then throw the race gas in it at that and bring it up to about 3/4 tank of race gas. Get that car back on the dyno, hit the rollers, and then tune it on the race gas. Reason why you want a full tank versus a 3/4 of a tank of a slightly diluted race gas is to make up for, you guessed it, fuel quality. It gives you a margin of error to play with. And sometimes that margin of error is only 1 degree of timing. 1 degree of timing is not going to make a difference, especially with one of these cars getting down the drag strip. So those are just the best practices to go about how to tune your car. Anytime you take your car to a tuner, it's going to spend any time on a dyno. Make sure you do the entire gambit of maintenance items, which is check and fill coolant. Make sure everything is good to go with your fuel and fueling system. Make sure it's a full tank of gas. If there's any questions or issues that you may have mechanically, make sure those are addressed before they get to your tuner, because your tuner will charge you. Once that car goes on the dyno, you've paid for the dyno for the day, and that car has to come off the dyno, it's coming out of your pocket. You're not getting that cash back typically. All right. Let's see. Rip's saying, when I get my 285 pulley put in my Hellcat, I would love to get a race fuel tune and a pump gas tune. Most guys do that. I will caution you on this, though. Once you go into that realm, you're really on your own. You're on a bit of an island here. And the reason why I say that is this. You don't want to put yourself in a position, if you have a race gas specific tune, to where you accidentally leave the race gas tune in the car. A lot of guys will leave the race gas tune in the car all the time and think, oh, it's not going to hurt anything. Yeah, it will. The extra timing, you can blow your car up on 93 depending on who's doing the tuning. So just be careful of that. Make sure when you're leaving the track, before you leave, you put the thing back in 93 octane mode quickly. Catalyst is asking, would you bother with the lightweight rotors and calipers from Bear, or just stick with the 6-piston Brembos? Man, to stick with the 6-piston Brembos, there is a replacement company, oddly enough, called Demon. It's not the car Demon, it's just the name of the company, Demon Rotors. They're really good. They're about 5 pounds a side less than the Brembo rotors, and they do great. They work fantastically. So that would be my suggestion if you need to get new rotors, but they're still pretty damn pricey. I think that the set is like, what is it, like $500, $600? I can't remember, but it's less than the Brembos, if nothing else. So you got that working for you. Let's see. Rip said, have you heard about the problem with false knock in these Hemis? My friend had it happen to him lately and wanted to know how hard it is to fix. Define false knock. The trucks are bad about it because they're just more noisy in general. But yeah, these Hemis are known to pull timing for literally no conceivable reason under the sun. My old truck would just randomly pull 3 degrees, just 3 degrees of knock retard, just cruising down the road. So, and that's with a stock tune. Go figure. But I will say this, is it hard to fix or easy to fix? It's super easy. I mean, you can permanently fix it by just, taking a bunch of the sensitivity out of the knock sensors. The problem with that is that you can possibly run into an issue when you actually do have knock. And keep something in mind. Sometimes when it's knock, sometimes it's really knock. So just know that coming into it, it's not always false knock. So you don't want to necessarily start chasing a dragon that's just as simple as going somewhere else to get gasoline. Let's see. Dogface is asking if I have any experience deleting the emission systems on modern diesels. No, I have no experience with that whatsoever. Riff's saying, so he was logging on his SRT8 and is pulling a lot of timing because of false knock. And he goes on to say, it seems like the knock sensors are under the manifolds, which is hard to get to. They're like right up, kind of more, almost kind of sort of in the middle of the engine. But yeah, so it could have one of two issues going on there. It could be real knock. Well, let's run down what it could be. It could be real knock and he needs to go somewhere else to get gas. I have had that happen before. It could be something internally is jacked up with the engine. Rare, but I've seen it happen, and it could be something like that, but I doubt that's going to be the case in this case. The other thing it could be is it could be just a bad knock sensor. Typically, knock sensors, when they fail, they just won't show any voltage at all, and you'll get a check engine light for that. Gibbs, does a Hellcat airbox and filter install on a 392 shaker car like a non-shaker? Can't seem to find a straight answer on this. No, they don't. The lower box will. This fan pointing over here at me. It is hot and muggy, and I am bald and fat, so I sweat. Let's see. The upper will not, but the lower, I believe, will. It's not any different. Dr. Diff saying, just interesting to me. What did I miss? There's a lot of things that are interesting to me, and I like interesting stuff. Slash is saying, after I took the drags off and put retires back on, I forgot to turn the TPMS back on with my taser, ruined my front tires, running on ultra low pressure for months without realizing it. Yeah, that will drive you nuts. You can do that very easily. You just got to get out there and take a look at the tire, man. It looks flat. Air that sucker up. Rip is saying, this is kind of a dumb question, but what do you think about taking out the other headlights so air can come in both sides on the Hellcat? I've got both sides out on my car. It's more of a symmetry thing, though, for me than anything else. But, yeah, I've got both sides out. And, I mean, does it help anything, I guess, is the bigger question. I can't really tell that it does, to be honest with you. But it certainly can't hurt. So I say go for it. Slash is saying, yeah, trust me, I've been there before. Rip saying, I was just worried about water going into the fuse box. No, you're not going to have to worry about any of that. Cal99, would you buy a brand new Challenger or the previous years with something like 10,000 miles on it? It depends on the price, and it depends on the maintenance history on the older Challenger. Challenger at 10,000 miles is basically brand new, so I wouldn't have a problem with that, provided it was properly maintained, especially if I knew the guy, or if you take a look at the car, everything checks out fine. If you're saving a chunk of change, get the used car. Don't take the hit on the front end if you don't have to, unless you want a brand new car, which there's nothing wrong with that, and I say go for it in that case too. Dr. Tip, knock for no damn reason. Yep, talked with a buddy of mine at Texas Beat, and he said that some of that false knock is from the noisy lifters of the Hemi. No, I didn't see the comment in there. Yeah, that's pretty much a thing. Yeah, that is part of it. The lifters do kind of sound like they're knocking. That's why I was saying it could be something mechanical. But yeah, the trucks are just known for it, though, man. The trucks are bad about that. I mean, literally driving down the road with the stock tune and 89 octane in the tank, and I'm just data logging it, and I happen to look over and I'm going, what in the hell is that? So yeah, it's ridiculous. MDS cars, the multi-displacement system cars, typically have more issue with that than others. We're just saying, I also saw people run their tubes from the second headlight towards the motor. Oh yeah, with that. Sure. You know, I've seen guys put the tubes in there and angle it and figure that they're getting it to some spot. Yeah, sure, man. You know, it's not going to hurt anything, and it can't do anything but help. If anything, there's some mosquitoes, man. So anyway, we had that tropical storm blow through here, and yeah, so it rained like hell. Some parts of Houston, Morella, or whatever the name of that freaking storm that came through here. Some areas of Houston got more rain with that than they did with Harvey. Anyway, we've got these freaking buzzard-looking mosquitoes flying around here. So, yeah, if I just randomly start slapping my hands around, I'm not having a fit. I'm trying to take out some bloodsucker that's trying to give me some kind of fucking death disease. Let's see. Dimitri's hanging out with Dr. Diff about that. Oh, Tony, my brother-in-law, checking in. Saying, my Ram's a good example of false knock. Yeah, it is. Especially with those headers, bro. For sure. Roof says, so I have the same differential brakes you do, Mason. What I need to do to get a better one if I put more power in my car? Oh, would you need to? No, you wouldn't have to. It's perfectly fine. Rip saying, what do you think about high flow cats? Are they worth it, or is it just regular cats or none at all? And you actually have a set of very high flow cats on your car right now. The only thing you could do at this point is to possibly get a set of metal substrate cats as opposed to the ceramic substrate, the biscuit type cats. Here's the thing though, that I don't know of a company that makes a metal substrate catalytic converter that is that big around, which is what you would really need to get the quote unquote high flow that you would want to have. Depending on how much power you're making, and realistically up to anything that you would run gasoline with, you're fine with your stock cats. Just know that you're going to have some cat overtemp protection still built into your tune. However, it's not really going to hurt anything, and I would always prefer to have catalytic converters on one of these vehicles as opposed to not having the catalytic converters on. In track testing at stock boost, I can tell you the difference in ET and mile an hour is zero, nothing, nada, zip. So as strange as that may seem, it is very true. And some guys, and you got to remember that these are the type of forced induction we're talking about here, positive displacement. The cats actually help to build cylinder pressure, which helps to build boost, which helps to build power. So in some minor instances, you will actually feel like the car got softer by taking the catalytic converters off of the car. Now, we're not talking about a naturally aspirated car here, but even with that, anyway, even with that, I would say don't worry about pulling the cats on the car. You can make some slight adjustments in the tune to mitigate a little bit of the cat over temp, but I'm gonna get him. The sucker's trying to get me when I'm not looking. Anyway, yeah, just but yeah. And as far as that goes, if you're gonna buy something specifically to put it on the car, yeah, metal substrates are good. And basically, you're looking at cell count at this point. All of the high flow cats are 400 cells per square inch. The metal substrate is basically 200 cells per square inch. In other words, the cells are larger And by that definition, they are a true high flow cat. But do not ever buy a ceramic catalytic converter that says it is high flow. It won't be. There's no 200 cell catalytic converters that are ceramic. So there you have it with that. R. Gibbs saying, don't blame the store on Houston's bird, the mosquito. I moved there before those things carried me away. Man, I'm telling you, no kidding. You know it's bad when you can hit one with a baseball bat and it makes a splat sound. Did I get it? Got that son of a bitch, too. Peace out, mother... Anyway, sorry about that. I just had to give that mosquito a little dose of act right. Let's see. Dr. Diff is saying, actually, he was working on that problem, and when I ordered that cam, I ordered a set of his updated non-MDS lifters, even though that's what's in it now. It's Dodge's version. I hope TSP knows something I don't. Yeah, they'll get you taken care of now. Catalyst 99, will cylinder deactivation still work if you add either a supercharger or turbos? Well, technically, you could still have it going on in there, but I would probably say that if you're going that deep into the engine, you're going to have the MDS deactivated at that point. So, can it? Yeah, but I would have it deactivated, especially if you start going into, well, you would be going into boost. At those load levels, you wouldn't have MDS active anyway in the tune, just naturally. So you could, but I wouldn't. Rip saying, so I know you told me before not to do a 285 pulley with a 91 octane we have here in California, but my dumbass is, the tuner and I have here is telling me that he can give me a pretty conservative tune. Should I go with some methanol just to be safe with that tune? Yeah-ish. I mean, okay, sure. Go with Snow Performance. Get their controller that runs everything off of injector duty cycle. Just a little dabble, do you, with that if you're gonna dabble in it. 285 on 91. It's a stretch for me, but it can be done. You're just not going to get as much out of that pulley as you could on 93. And here's the thing, though. This is where I'm going to caution you on the methanol thing. Don't have your tuner tune it on methanol and lean on the methanol kit for the extra octane and fuel. It's a bad idea because methanol kits can fail. This is just stuff that I've seen. Okay, so methanol kit fails to fire. Methanol line breaks on the dyno, of all things, spraying the whole bottom of the car and the dyno and everything else with freaking methanol. If you've never been around that stuff, it's like all hands on deck, swabbing the deck, because that stuff eats paint off of everything. You can have... This happened with a Jeep that was an LS swap, one of the later four-door JKs, LS 6.2 with a Maggie. That thing was hanging for its dear life on that methanol kit. If that methanol kit were to have ever failed, that Jeep would pop like a freaking pinata. So, again, just... okay, yeah, if you're going to do it, that's fine, but just know that... and the other thing is you can run out of methanol. So, again, there's a lot of reasons why I don't like methanol. It does have its place, but its place is not for a street car. And I'll just leave it at that. Let you get your let you make your own decisions based on maybe my facial expression here. Let's see. Your face checking in saying, beautiful Challenger, man. I appreciate that. Let's see. Rip's saying, so I keep hearing how Chrysler and Dodge make really crappy cars quality-wise. You think SRT might be better made? No, they're not. But I will tell you this. They are a bit more robust in general than some of the other cars that I've seen. Keeping in mind that, you know, again, if you work around a shop or you're in and around this thing that we do with hot rodding. You see everybody's failures, and everybody does fail. So yeah, all of these cars have some Achilles heel. It's just how it is, unfortunately. And they're really not crappy cars, man. I mean, I've seen a ton of Challengers, 08, 09, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 Challengers that have been put through the ringer and have come out the other side that have been great. We use Dodge trucks as fleet trucks, and man, I mean, we've got them running around 170, 180,000 miles, and these are 2018s, by the way. Some 2017s with that type of mileage and don't have any issues, where I've seen issues with other vehicles. So again, all the manufacturers have got problems. They've all got warts. Take it with a grain of salt. It's a machine. Machines do what they do best, which is run until they don't. So there you have it. Most of them are pretty robust. Hellcat is by far, by the way, one of the most robust combinations, platforms, however you want to look at it, that I've ever dealt with. And well, I'm old and I've been doing this stuff since I was about like that big. So very robust platform. Your Face checking in saying, I have the Bully Dog tune. Very nice. That's cool. Argive saying, too much money in his car to have that fail. Yeah, that's part of my argument with methanol, man. You just got to take it with a grain of salt. And like I say, it's great for a race application, but not for. And here's the other thing. So when you run the thing around on the street with methanol, you have got to remember that methanol is, in some cases, what is keeping your engine alive. Methanol for me is like life support if you don't have the proper fuel quality to work with. Use methanol at your own peril. Slash checking in and saying, someone's going from reverse to drive or vice versa, or simply punching the gas on the highway. It clunks or jerks. Drive shaft, rear, gear oil needing change. Let's see. Let me see if I understand the question. So, going from reverse to drive or vice versa. If it clunks, chances are it might not be a drive shaft. Look for suspension parts. Sounds to me like you're getting possibly a trailing arm or a control arm bushing that's failing. Look for that first, and then look at the drive shaft second. Look if it's a Challenger or Charger. Look at the carrier bearing. Rich saying, I just wanted to point out that when I get my 285 pulley in my Hellcat, I will not take it to the track without putting race fuel in it. It would just be on the street with pump gas. Good idea. And again, if you're going to be wailing on the thing on the street, man, keep you some butane on tap somewhere, brother. Your Face checking in and saying, I used to like Mustangs because they had a solid rear axle, but since that's gone away, or they've gone away, and that's history. That is correct. Last of the hot rods to have a solid rear axle. Unless you're talking about the drag pack cars, and in that case, the Challenger, the Mustang, and the Camaro all have solid rear axles. Let's see. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Catalyst is asking, at what point do you need to seriously consider adding a roll bar? It is at the point where you seriously start to consider safety. Realistically, though, in these modern cars, with as stable as they are, if you start running, I'm going to say my opinion, the Challengers, you start running close to the 8s, like say 850, I'm sorry, 950, 930, 920. That's when you need to start thinking about some kind of roll protection. And keep in mind this, guys, you know, I've been around this stuff for a long time, and a lot of people have been around this stuff a lot longer than me, and it's just a matter of time before something could possibly get you in a situation where the pucker factor goes to straight make a diamond out of charcoal mode. I've had cars wall hunt at the drag strip. I've had cars start to wall hunt at 65, 75, 85 miles an hour going down the freeway. So again, you start making a ton of power, you might want to start looking into at least putting a half cage in the thing, get you some type of a roll bar back there, just to give you a little bit of added extra support. But, and this is a big deal, it doesn't always help you on the street. One of the issues, freaking spider web now. One of the issues that you run into is if you are in a wreck and you've got a roll bar around you, your head can hit the roll bar. So better judgment here, but if you've got something that is a dedicated race car, make sure that it does have a roll cage. Dr. Diff, on the crappy Mopar question, my buddy Jared just rolled 180,000 in his 2012 Ram and 0 problems after the trans rebuild. Runs high 13s all day in the heat, basic build, sealed block from the covers down. Yeah, see, they're good trucks, good cars. All the way around, they're great. It's a great platform. A lot of guys, you know, there's a very strong vocal number of guys that have had issues with lifters. Yeah, there was a bad run of lifters. It happens. Chevrolet has had bad runs of lifters. Ford has had bad tensioners with their overhead cam engines. A lot of folks have had issues, and it comes and goes. It comes in waves. So, you know, every manufacturer is going to have these types of problems, and it's funny in a way to me because, you know, Ford guy hears that Chevy guy's having a problem, and Chevys are junk. Chevy guys hear Mopar's having a problem. Mopars are junk. You know, Mopar hears, you know, Ford and Chevy guys having problems, and they just sit back and eat popcorn because they're just like joining the crowd. But you know how it is, man. Speed Freak got a good question here. I was curious why you haven't put a catch can on Revlon. Suggest it as a starter mod or skip it. Well, I haven't put one on the car because I keep forgetting to order one, and I am a little bit too cheap right now to order one. But no, realistically, I honestly, I just keep forgetting to order a set. It is going to get a dual catch can setup, but why it's not on the car right now, I couldn't tell you. But the car seems to be doing pretty good without it. So, you know, if it ain't broke, don't break it. Let's see. Dr. Div's saying the only reason the intake was off was so you could port it. Man, I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that thing's running good too. That's a badass, and runs 13s. That's a quick truck, man. Just a basic build 5.7, man. Let's see. SRT 8 and 8. Let's see. Rich saying, how often do you think I should change the transmission fluid in my A8 Hellcat? Well, I think severe duty is, Dr. Diff, correct me if I'm wrong, is severe duty 60,000 miles? They're fill for life, but I'm not a big fill for life guy. But yeah, I think severe duty is like 60,000. I can't remember off the top of my head. I wouldn't worry about it too much though. Let's see. Rich saying, by the way, you're going back to the roll bar. I think that if you have one, you should have a 5-point harness. Yeah, but again, here's the thing. On the street, 5-point harnesses can be a bit of a pain in the ass because instead of having 1 point to just get out of the car, you're going to have one lock, and then you've got to fillet yourself out of the thing if you've got to get out of the car quickly. So on the street, it's one thing. On the track, it's something else. You know, race car, yep, 5-point harness all the way. Let's see. Speed Freak saying, and for just street play, go with 20-inch drag radials or go with 18-inch bravados and 305s? Man, good question. If you've got it in the budget to run bravadas all the way around on your car, go with the 20-inch up front, the 18-inch in the back. You can't tell the difference going down the road if you've got a symmetry thing or a wheel height thing. I will say this, the tires for the 18s are less expensive. And my understanding is, obviously they're going to hook a little bit better. They might have a little bit more tread on them, but the main thing is that it's going to ride a little bit better. I can tell you that with the 18s in the back. So if it's my car, I would put a full set of bravadas on the car with the 18s in the back, 20s up front, let her eat. The 20-inch just get a little bit too expensive to have to replace. That's the only thing. I mean, I like my 20-inch setup, but If I were to do it all over again, I might just throw bravadas all the way around on the car. Again, and it's just more from a cost standpoint than anything else. Not to mention, if you rash the hell out of a bravada, you can buy another bravada. If you rash the hell out of one of the slingshots, those damn things are expensive now. Don Powers checking in saying, what's up, man? What's up, B? Powers? Riff saying, I went with some Mickey Thompson ET Street 305 35s for daily driving on the Hellcat. Oh, yeah, those are good. ET Street SS is what a lot of guys will run. One thing I didn't like about them is they do tend to collect a lot of dust, and they end up not really hooking as well as the Nittos do. But that's just on the street. On the track, Mickey's all day long. I mean, all day long. Donald Powers, there is. Hello, Mr. Mason. I like it. Riff saying they work great. Yeah, they do. Why dual catch cam versus single? The reason for it is I want a catch can on the PCV entering the intake manifold, in this case, the supercharger. And I also want one on the intake side where the discharge area is, on the driver's side. So on a naturally aspirated car, it's not that much needed, but on something that's flowing this much air, I want to keep oil from coming into either direction that the supercharger itself. So it would get a dual catch can, one for both sides. Shawnee checking in saying, good evening, B. How much horsepower can stock injector support on a dyno jet with a Hellcat? What does a stock Hellcat make? About 660? I would say about 680 horsepower is about as high as I would trust them up to. Now they'll support, I mean, by technical specifications, they'll support, you know, say 700 horsepower-ish to the rear wheels. I just wouldn't want to run that on the street. So, big difference from what something will, or how a product will work in a lab versus in the real world. On the dyno, the data will look good. In the real world, the data may not look as good. So, just my 2 cents on that one. Let's see, Dr. Diff is asking, 5.7 my tune, long tubes, your intake, SRP ported throttle body, injectors pump, and pump E85. I love it. Is he coming to the track rental on that truck? I would love to see that truck in person. Shawnee, Dimitri, I run the same 305 Nittos as well on 10.5-inch wheels. Good tires, man. Dr. Diff saying service training to 40,000 for severe service. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Sherrod checking in. Saying, good evening, what is the max horsepower to the ground would you run with an HP 70 trans? I would say for Challengers and Chargers, horsepower, I wouldn't want to go above about 550, 575 at the freaking most, man. The problem is you've got to remember that it's not the horsepower, it's the torque, and it's not just the torque, but it's how that torque is delivered. Let me give you an example. You can have two engines, both of them making 500 horsepower to the rear wheel. Sounds like a decent amount of power, right? Well, it is, but if one of them is making that kind of power with a centrifugal type supercharger, think like a Pro Charger, it's not going to have this big torque hit down low, whereas if that same engine were making 500 horsepower, but you're making it with a positive displacement style supercharger, or I don't know, say 125 or 150 shot of nitrous, it's going to have this real hard torque hit down low, and that's what will hurt the transmission. So just keep that in the back of your mind. It also has to do a lot with how the vehicle is being used. Is this car going to the drag strip a lot? Is it dead hooking a lot? Or is it on street tires or maybe drag radials? It's not really dead hooking, you get a lot of wheel spin. In that case, you're not going to hurt the transmission, because that fusible link, so to speak, is the tire, is the lack of traction. That's going to save the transmission. If that thing is dead hooking a lot and you're hitting it with a lot of torque down low, that's what's going to sting that HP 70. So just take that into account. Hopefully that answers the question though. Rip saying same as Sean E. Dimitri's saying the 10.5. Let's see, Catalyst. If If you put 305s on a narrow body, is it going to cause any problems? Doesn't look like it to me. Looks like it looks pretty good and it works great. I run 305s on my 20-inch and on my 17s, and they do a fantastic job, and they look good doing it. Cristobal saying, do you think it's worth getting a tune on a 17 Challenger 5.7 6-speed? Got a fast man throttle body, just wondered if it was worth the trouble. Yeah, I would say it is worth it for sure. Pick up a little bit of extra power, get a little bit more throttle response out of it. Get rid of some of the nannies. Yeah, absolutely. I would say go for it. I wouldn't necessarily do it for power, just do it more for, you know, making the car a bit more drivable and a little bit more consistent drive out of it. Main thing you need to do if you got a 6-speed manual is take the freaking valve, the clutch delay valve out of it. Let's see. Argibbs is asking that a buddy is just pro-charged his Scat Pack and he swears his stock TR6060 can take the 600 foot-pound peak. Can it really? Yeah, it can. TR6060 pretty stout transmission. The only thing I would worry about though with that is, can that TR6060, and he's talking about 600 pound-feet of torque. That is a lot out of a pro-charge car. Unless he's talking about flywheel. But the thing about it is that, yeah, it can handle it, but again, it depends on what he's doing with it. If you're launching the thing really hard, based on the weight, you'll go through clutches, I think, before you'll actually break something in the transmission, typically. The problem with that transmission with the Hellcat is just how the Hellcat develops torque down low. That's one of the reasons why it uses the transmission that it does, because it needs the extra torque capacity because, one, it's making a lot of torque down low, and two, the car is heavy. Dr. Div saying, don't make Nitto try 5s. In mine did the 420, still haze them at 60. Can't even do rolling brake boost until it's above 40. I love it, even when it's hot, even better. Dr. Div saying, my HP70 held 650 foot-pounds for 2 years, so keep it down. Yep. Zephyr R&D in the house saying, what up? Makes saying, got the fist bump. I like it. What's some of the highest mileage on 6.1 NAG1 cars have you seen been reliable, of course, with proper maintenance? About 230 to 270,000 miles is what I've seen on some real high mileage 6.1 NAG1 cars. And those were guys that did a lot of runs back and forth from Houston to Louisiana and from Houston to Austin, San Antonio area. They used them as their dailies, and yeah, cars did great. One of them, I think he still has it. It's a Magnum, actually. Shawnee, Hellraiser upper and stock injectors is basically an accident waiting to happen. That is correct. I believe it is. I saw that setup this weekend, and I couldn't believe it. I've seen it a lot, and collectively, there's been on at least 2 occasions where we've actually told guys, you're not running your car anymore until you get this injector thing figured out. And oddly enough, I think it saved the 2 cars that I'm talking about right now. So, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't care what anybody wants to try to tell you. And he's saying, I'll get Jared there. Yes, get that truck down there, man. I want to see that. I always like seeing my intakes or cams in action. Dimitri's saying, have you heard about those tires from Walmart? I will need to look at what they're called again, but everybody swears by them for Hellcats. Probably what you're thinking of is, you say, sorry, I'll look up the name. We're probably talking about Aturos if you're talking about buying them off of Walmart.com. Butt Sweat, buddy, that almost takes the cake for best screen name, saying, hello, everyone. What's up, man? Shawnee, turns out sport mode is about 3/4 of a car length quicker than the quarter mile, and then track mode for your automatic drag racers out there. That is 100% correct. Been saying that for a while. Glad you got a chance to put that to the test yourself, man. Rich saying a Turo is what there he goes. A Turo is what they're called. A lot of people are getting those for their Hellcat and swearing by them, even though they're really cheap. They are dirt cheap. And the reason why people love them is because they are black, they are round, you can get them in 305s and the stock size. They do just fine on the street. Actually, in lateral acceleration, they're pretty good. Take a look. I think I had a video a while back, me playing around with some of those tires in the 392 SRT. Or don't expect anything out of them other than to get you from point A to point B and to put up a lot of really pretty tire smoke should you choose to light them up. The good thing is if you do decide to burn them down to the quartz, you can always afford to get a new set because they are so cheap. Don't do any high-speed blast with them, although I've heard of people doing it. Don't do it, but they are good for what they are. Dr. Dave's asking, so on the original topic of fuel quality, do you plan on pulling a little timing out for 93? No, I don't, and the reason why is I'm on a stock tune that does just fine pulling a little bit of timing out on its own, and I'm cool with that. I haven't really seen a reason to yank timing just in general under high load conditions. I will say this, it's interesting for me to watch the actual data on the car change based on where I get fuel. I can tell you that Bucky's gasoline, love me some Bucky's. There's an Exxon right down the street, pretty good. If I get fuel anywhere else, my car gets a little pissy attitude. So, but yeah. Hey, Rich checking in, saying just a bit more for helping me out as usual. Man, I appreciate that. And then Sean E saying a little nugget for tinted windows. Man, no shit, right? Well, I appreciate that. And you and my wife are both on me about getting my windows tinted. It is coming soon, I promise. We're going to get through Mopar Fest, and then I'll start doing stuff like that to her. Because it is a fishbowl right now in that car. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, I ran almost pure 100 BP octane last Saturday with relatively low DA, about 400 feet. Car seemed just fine. Made my best mile per hour ever. Too bad it's $8 a gallon. Yeah, no kidding on that. I will say this though, if we're talking about fuel testing, one of the things that I've noticed is that my car does not like 104. This is Sunoco 104. I'm not sure why that is, but it really doesn't like it at all. In fact, it'll suffer a little bit unless I just use it very sparingly, like maximum of like two gallons to make the car at half a tank. And in fact, really the magic fuel mix with 104 is 1 gallon. So not really sure why that is, but that's just kind of how things shook up with 104 octane with my car. Catalyst is asking, porting and polishing the heads, is it worth it? No, not at all. Not on a 15 and up car. A solid port on the Eagle heads is good. You don't have to polish them. But a solid port on the Eagle heads will get you a little bit more power, but it won't get you near the flow rate that the Apache heads have. These things are ridiculous. Dr. Diff saying these names crack me up. Some of them are awesome, man. I love it. Dr. Diff's asking, how do you keep a straight face, man? I just roll with it, brother. Again, Sean, thanks again, man. Rip, thanks again, brother. I appreciate y'all donating to the cause, man. I truly do. White Knuckles asking, what up, E? What up, White? Let's see, will putting a 3400 stall converter in an HP70 be a good idea, or will it kill it fairly quickly? It won't hurt anything. You're still going to be locking the converter up. I will tell you that it can be a bit annoying. And if you're not used to driving a car with a high stall, you may find that it is not very fun. It'll feel very soft, and you're really not going to want to lock the converter up until you get into like third gear. So you're going to leave it unlocked in first gear, unlocked in second gear. And in some cars, we actually left them unlocked in third and would only lock them up in fourth and throughout the rest of the gears. Mainly because the difference between the slip and the lock was just so abrupt that it just sucked for drivability. And you always want to make sure that you're running a converter. The thing is if you're going down the highway, you want the converter to either be locked up, like in other words, your torque converter clutch is locked, or you want it to be past its stall speed. That's to keep it from generating a ton of heat. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, if you're doing a lot of city driving, you're going to get some pretty decent temperature. It's going to be whipping the hell out of that fluid. Let's see, SRT8 Nate saying, I got the mid mufflers and resonators deleted off my 6.1 charger. I've been getting a loud metal on metal sound, but only at 2400 RPM. That's resonating. While decelerating in manual mode, could this be exhaust related? It could be. One of two things, I didn't read enough, but yeah, it could either be a really weird resonation because you're coming down off of a higher RPM, or it could simply be hitting something. You need to get underneath there and check it out. Metal on metal sound, but only at 2400 RPM while decelerating in manual mode. Yeah, check for anything that could be loose underneath there. Check for any clearance issues is the main thing. I bet that car is loud as hell. Rip is saying, my SRT8 has all the windows tinted, but here in California, it is so hard to get away with it. I got 3 tickets for window tint in 2 months. Damn. In fact, 2 of those tickets were within 1 week. Of all things to get a ticket for. Dr. Joe saying, have you tried 110 LL fuel? Works great in Pops and Jesse's cars. Can't use it much because there's lead in it, but it loves the better fuel. I have not done that. I am steering clear of any leaded fuel for my car. So 100 it will have to be. So I can get my hands on it. Rip is saying, I will let you know the before and after results on the dyno when I get my JLT intake. Yes, definitely do. R-Give saying, B keeps seeing these other names. He might change his own to Chad Thunderclaw. And you never know, I might. Some of these are really fun to read. Dimitri is saying, I'm guessing about 3 to 5 horsepower gain at the most. Maybe. Yeah. You know, the testing part of it on the dyno, again, you're not going to get that same result in the car. Again, if you're putting that in the car, do it for the sound of it. But yeah, realistically, you might get a couple of horsepower out of it. Dr. Tip saying, I've got mine unlocked through 5th. Trans tips are fine and it's fun. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun. Speed Freak's asking, what negative results would occur if you went to a 309 rear gear and didn't do any tuning? There are no negative results. The only thing that I've said that I noticed going to a 309 with no tuning is just that the car felt a little bit softer. That said, it is not a bad thing. It actually feels a bit more refined with the gear, without throwing a bunch of driver command torque at it, which is basically making the throttle more sensitive. It's personal preference really at that point, but aside from that, there are no ill effects from going to that 309 whatsoever. Rich saying, do you think the pedal commander would help with the 0 to 60 times? I know you did not get any horsepower with it, but does it help you accelerate faster? No, it won't, but it might in one situation, in one area. Acceleration is all about how you are applying power and your comfort level with how your foot feels on that accelerator as you're depressing it versus your acceleration rate. If the pedal commander helps you read the car a little bit better, either by adding sensitivity or by taking the sensitivity away, it's based just on the ramp rate, instead of being, it could, ramp up the power like that. It could ramp the power up and curved over, which is going to make it more aggressive, less aggressive. But if by adjusting it, it helps the car become a bit more intuitive to you, just with the way that you perceive the acceleration, your brain-foot connection works. In that respect, it absolutely can. And I like power commanders quite a bit, by the way. Catalyst is asking, is your Hellcat a daily driver? No, it is not. And what do you recommend for reasonable rates on car insurance? It depends on your specific age, zip code, driving record, things like that. But it, depends on it depends on a lot of stuff. But for my car, I mean, I wouldn't pay more than about 175 bucks a month for full coverage. Shawnee saying, I have a stock Hellcat with 309 gears, no negative results. Actually, the car loves it. Yes, it does. AZ Independent saying, hey, what's up? Do you use Boostain and is it any good? No, I don't, and it does work. If so, I run Torco accelerator on my Challenger SRT8 and it's good stuff. It's actually produced in Apache Junction, Arizona, about 15 miles from us. Very cool. I don't use it mainly because if I'm going to bump up my octane, I typically will bump it up with actual race gas as opposed to an active. But I know guys that do run the Boostain and the Torco, and they like it because they don't have access to race gas, and it's a good viable alternative up to a point. So yeah, I like it for that reason, and I say go for it. If you don't have access to race gas, it's the next best thing. Let's see. Shawnee is saying Dimitri does not help 0 to 60 because it's harder to have the modulation on the launch, but it does bump up the feel factor, or the fun factor. SRT8 Nate, how do you feel about octane boosters? Not the biggest fan of them. It's not that there's anything wrong with an octane booster. It's really more the human error part of that can come into play. But in general, they work fine. I don't recommend them for a car with just a stock tune unless it's a Hellcat. In that case, yeah, throw a little bit in there. But the reality is that it's not it's not detrimental to the car. It's not going to hurt anything. But again, I wouldn't want to lean on it. And that's one thing we do tell guys is if they have been accustomed to running some type of an octane booster in the car, make sure you burned all of that stuff out before you take it to a tuner or for a 93 octane tune, because that can skew the results and end up putting you in a bad spot. Let's see. See, Shawnee's saying the 6-speed Hellcat with the Hellraiser upper pulley and stock injectors. I need to talk to him or talk him into going with at least Demon injectors, right? No cats. You can leave the cats on it. That's not a big deal. But yeah, no cats. If it's got the cats off the car, then leave the cats off. And yeah, a set of Demon injectors would probably be where he needs to be for his power level. I would prefer to see a set of ID 1050s or FIC 1000s in the car, though, if he's running regular gasoline. Riff's saying, I just feel like if you have really good traction, then a pedal commander would help. Again, yeah, I mean, if it helps you to feel the car a little bit better, if it makes that connection a little bit stronger or what have you, then go for it. I can see where it could help you in that respect. Sean said, I'm trying to save his engine. Yeah, I hear you, brother. Rip's saying $95 a month for me right now, but that's just because I have been lucky. Very good. You can always get the specialty car insurance on these things too, but they're a little bit restrictive. Rip is asking, what do you think about the new pulley that just came out where you do not need a tune with it? Shawnee is saying about what I was about to say. Better move to Colorado with that 317. So here's the deal with that, man. Getting a little bit of I guess you could call it, getting a lot of questions and a little bit of grief over that pulley and some of the things that I've said about it. So number one, I would never put a pulley on my car without a tune. There are too many variables that you're having to deal with. Just like what I was talking about before, we're hanging out chatting about fuel quality. Guys, look, you start throwing boost on top of that, you're going to be yanking more timing out of the thing. Then you're going to go into cat over temp. You're already doing a pretty decent job of maxing out the injectors. And I'm talking about down here in good old H-Town, Texas, where we deal with sub-zero density altitude conditions once the temperature starts to drop around 50 degrees. Not a good idea to start putting the thing into cat over temp and pegging the Not to mention you could potentially run into fuel quality issues, again, like I was talking about earlier. And that is definitely not a good thing when you're throwing more boost at it, even if it's just a pound or two. Guys say, oh, it's just a this or it's only a that. That's good. Are they going to pay for your engine if it pops? Are they going to get you a rental Hellcat for you to drive around in if you pop the Hellcat that pulley is on? Are they going to pay for the engine, the labor, and any time transportation, anything along those lines? If the answer is no to any one of those things, then I wouldn't trust it on my car. And that's one of the things, man. I like that somebody is doing something and they took a look at the car and said, oh yeah, we can do that. We can basically give the thing a pound of boost. It's not gonna, the tune will be able to cover it, that's fine. Yeah, it can, but it's never a good idea to start tinkering with boost. And again, you got to think of this in a lot of different terms. On the surface, it seems fine, but what about discharge temperature? Anyway, a lot of things come into play here, and I'm just not a fan of throwing a pulley on a car unless it's got a tune attached to it. Unless you live in Colorado, where it's just not going to make stock boost anyway. And that can be a good correction, boost correction part for your car. But if you live anywhere where, at your actual altitude is less than 1,000 feet, I wouldn't put it on your car. You're not going to get that much out of it to begin with anyway. Get a little bit though, and that little bit can get you a lot in trouble. Now, Rich saying, I feel like the 317 is not really worth it because it's not. Rich saying, also just curious, if you get another PCM for your car and then put your factory one back in later, does it still keep a record of you tuning it? Yes, it does. Damn, SRT8. Hey, man, thank you very much. Saying, you the man. Well, you're the man, dude. I appreciate that. Thank you for the contribution to the cause, man. I do appreciate that, brother. It does, it'll show a 1405 code, and that 1405 code is actually held in the TCM. But yes, it will still show that there has been a flash, aftermarket flash on the car. Let's see, again, SRT8 thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. Dimitri's saying, thanks, SRT8 absolutely. We're saying, I am. Yes, you are. You are. I am. I like that. Shawnee's saying, I've got some really aggressive speed shops up here. I'm considering sending my car to Pikes next year. Probably a good idea for you, man. Again, and when it comes to tuners, I don't like to get all into this East Coast, West Coast style rap battle when it comes to tuners and stuff like that. But there are guys that are a bit more conservative than others. I am about as mom as you can get when it comes to tuning on the Hellcats, but for good reason. Again, I've seen a lot of really funky stuff, and also to this point, a tune that's set to kill on one of these Hellcats, I mean, unless you're racing for money, you're not going to notice a difference between a tune set to kill. It's got all the sauce, or however you want to put it. You're not really going to see a huge difference between, one with, say, X number of degrees of timing and one with X minus 1 or X minus 2 degrees of timing going down the drag strip. You're just really not going to see it. If you're trying to squeeze all that you can out of a Hellcat, again, what you see on the dyno will not always translate to what actually works in the real world. And because of weight is why that pattern holds true. It's just weight is artificial timing. Weight is added cylinder pressure for any specific rate of acceleration. You've got to understand that as a tuner. And that's why you don't tune trucks the same way that you tune cars with the same engine combination. It also comes down to wind resistance. Coefficient of drag is another artificial load, artificial timing, add cylinder pressure, etc. I mean, you kind of see where this is going. So you need to work with a tuner that not only speaks Mopar, but understands the concepts behind the whys. Like, why don't you add more timing? Well, let's start stacking these things up as far as why. Why this fueling? Why that? All of that comes into play, especially when you're talking Mopars. That's why so many guys got out of tuning Mopars a long time ago. They treated them like a normal, single spark plug engine. They treat them like a normal 3,800 pound car. You've got to be able to speak Mopar, or you don't need to be really talking that language, to be honest with you. Got to learn it. Rich saying, I'm still up in the air whether I'm going to trade my Hellcat in for a red eye or wait till I can afford to put a Elephant motor in it. Trade it in on a red eye. If you're even thinking about it, go ahead and pick you up a red eye. If for no other reason than you get a very stout bottom end, good supercharger, a red eye will always be cool. Don't expect the Elephant to be out anytime real soon, and don't try to build your own through through whippling or whatever. I just don't think that you're really going to get there necessarily. It's one of those deals where, yeah, you could get the Elephant crate engine, but I think they're already sold out, so there's that. Kind of a build your own type of a situation. Yeah, maybe, but it's going to be tough to get your hands on that 3-liter supercharger in the aftermarket right now. So again, just a lot of things to consider there. But the red eye is a very solid platform. Second only in robustness to the Hellcat. I'm sorry, second to none, and the Hellcat is the only engine that I know of that is only second to that platform, same as the Demon, by the way. So, and that's really only with the pistons too. Looks like they have Molar pistons from the factory. This thing's pretty badass. Let's see. Riff saying, I got a good amount of money saved up, but just a matter of what I want to do. It just depends on what you want to do with the car in general. And you can always make more power no matter what. So, what do you do? I don't know. If it's me, I'd be pretty happy with the 309 equipped red eye, but that's more or less what I've got sitting behind me. There's not a huge difference. We're talking a couple of tenths, a couple of car lengths between my car and my car's equivalent in a red eye. It makes it kind of difficult, right? I mean, is it worth that extra money for me to get a couple of tenths out of it when I can just kind of turn the screws up a little bit, no pun intended, but very aptly placed. But is it worth it for me to spend the extra cash? I love me some Revlon, and I'm going to stick and hold with what I've got. And if you've got the means to go ahead and move forward with the red eye, I'd say move forward with the red eye. I think the upshot is worth it. Let's see. Shawnee is saying, I'm curious to see what my car will see on a trans tune first before I throw a lure at it. Throw a lure at it. That's pretty apropos, brother, but I understand what you're saying. Dr. Div's asking, how much timing does my car have at wide open throttle? It has stock timing. So depending on the boost level, intake, air temp, and about three other spark modifiers. Right now it's sitting about 17. But I've seen it go as high as 18 and a half. Let's see. Rick saying, isn't that still a tune? Oh, it's talking to Sean. Meaning if you do a trans tune, wouldn't that still affect everything else? Yes, it does. Shawnee's saying, I'm still learning, but I need a trans tune on my car first. Yep, you do. You get more out of a trans tune than you get out of an engine tune on the Hellcats. I'm just saying. Ruth's saying, or can I go the way that Speedest Garage did and get a red-eye motor for your Hellcat? Yes, you can absolutely do that. You can 100% do that. You can get one that is red-eye from oil pan to supercharger, or you can just get the short block. Or you can get a set of Molar pistons and rods installed in your Hellcat and actually have a stronger bottom end technically. We're saying, but I've been looking for a red-eye motor, and they're really hard to find right now. That's why everybody, if they're going to even think about doing something like that, is just going Molnar rods and pistons. Speed Freak is asking, are the internals forged on a Hellcat motor, or are the red-eye internals much stronger? The red-eye internals are significantly stronger, but yeah, I believe the Hellcat has forged pistons, but powdered rods, I believe, is how that. No, hyper-eutectic pistons in the Hellcat, but they're very good ones. High silicon content. SRT8 is asking, what gears are in my 0661 Charger? If I were willing to bet, I think there are 309s in that car. Dr. Diff is asking, how much boost? Right at 10.5 pounds of boost. It is as average as you can get, at least based on the data, for a stock Hellcat. We're saying, good question, Speed Freak. That's what I've been trying to find out. Yeah, I believe they're hypers, but they are high silicon content hypers, and they will handle a bunch of power. And they don't crack the way that the older style forged pistons would if they get rattled. They have a tendency to be able to absorb some shock a little bit better in the Hellcat. Shawnee, my goal is to be conservative. Innovators West lower and run the stock red eye. To run with the stock red eye, how much more do I need to be? Well, not much more. I mean, you know, a trans tune will get you right on top of one for sure. Innovators West lower with the tune and everything else will put you dead even, or maybe even a little bit quicker than a stock red eye. But it'd be very, very close. Albert's saying, 2012 392 question, would buying a Diablo tuner to shut off the MDS preserve the life of my lifters? It depends on how often you're going into MDS mode, but I would say it would definitely not hurt to get the MDS shut off in that car. So short answer is, yeah, it would probably help. By how much? Not really sure. Shawnee is saying, I think there are 306 gears. Oh, talking about the question on the gears. Yeah, 306 or 309. I can't remember exactly. I know they're real close, but that is going to be a gate drag rear end as opposed to a ZF. Speed Freak saying, fill us in on the Camaro you mentioned you picked up for your wife. Well, she picked it up. It's a 93 Rally Sport 305 TBI car with 700 R4 automatic. And it is fun. I really like that car a lot. Fun thing about that car too, this is freaking hysterical. I think it's got it's got at least a shift kit or a different valve body in the car. And it might have a different gear in it, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. The interior is really clean, and the car runs pretty good. I've replaced the O2 sensor, air temperature sensor, just a couple of knickknacks here and there, changing oil, stuff like that. The funny thing about it, though, is that car has tip-in torque like you would not believe. The camshaft is a non-existent lift. It's probably got an LSA. I don't know what the LSA is on this cam, but it has absolutely no lift and no duration. Throttle body injected, and so anyway, it's got a ton of tip-in torque. Dare I say, even more so than the Hellcat does. I mean, the car didn't weigh anything, so you just go on the throttle, and the car goes, but it doesn't matter how much more you press the throttle, it just keeps accelerating at the same rate. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. I've really got a soft spot in my heart for that car, and so you may see it parked back here in some future shows, but yeah, I like that car a lot. It's a lot of fun, and it's so it does a hell of a burnout. First of all, it will absolutely light the tires up on a brake stand, and when the car is cool, I'm going to put a Z28 setup, the third gen Z28 induction setup with just a hat and a tube going to it, to keep the intake air temps down, because right now they've got to be through the freaking roof. But when that car is cool, and before the intake air temps go through the roof, it actually is making pretty, it'll bark the hell out of second gear in that configuration. If I can just get it to the right spot on the road that has just enough silt. Anyway, it's turning out to be so much fun because the car's not trying to kill you ever. And where this thing, there's a in Mexico, there's a spot where I do a lot of data logging, and this thing will get up to ridiculous speeds very quickly. I mean, it's deep into triple digits. With the Camaro, to get to this one certain spot, it's will it get to 90? Will it get to 90? Which makes it more fun because it's making all the noise and it's doing everything. Anyway, sorry, the car just puts a freaking smile on my face, man. I don't know what it is about it, but I'm loving my time with it, working on it. Let's see. But the interior on it's really clean, and it suffers from all the problems that all the Gen 3 Camaros have, meaning I've got to pull the instrument cluster out of it and get it sent off to get all fixed up. I've got to get the rear hatch fixed because it leaks its ass off. Just a bunch of little bullshit paint body type stuff, but anyway, I'm having a ball with the car, so I can't say anything negative about it whatsoever. And for anybody who says, that car's slow, it only makes 170 horsepower, only does this, only does that, man, you're totally missing the point. There is nothing. I mean, you're at watt the entire time you're driving the car. It's funny because it's one of those deals where it's a hell of a lot more fun to drive a slow car fast than it is to drive a fast car fast. And, where the Hellcat or a Scat Pack 392 car, hell, even the trucks to some extent once you start hot rodding them. But you go from like 65 miles an hour to you're going straight to jail in about 2 seconds. This car isn't like that at all. But you can still do long smoky burnouts and, hang the thing sideways at will. I mean, what's more fun than that? So anyway, sorry, it's just, you can actually hoon it and have a lot of fun. R. saying, on the topic of red-eye swapping some Hellcats, what are the differences between the two engines? I was under the impression the red-eye's biggest gains were from a larger blower, and that is it. That's exactly it. No differences. No difference in cam, no difference really with anything. And really, it's just in the pistons where you're going to see a big difference with the red-eye versus the Hellcat. And, of course, the supercharger, which is a 2.7 versus a 2.38 in the Hellcat. Although the 2.38 in the Hellcat, I think, is more efficient. Riff is saying, what trips me out about the red-eye and the Demon can run on pump gas with a good amount more boost, but everybody tells me the Hellcat needs race fuel to do the same. Well, let's take a look at that and break it down. First of all, you have to look at the timing maps between the two cars. If you take the air charge, let's say you have an air charge of 1.2. For the Hellcat, you'll be commanding about 17.5 degrees of timing. The red-eye or the Demon will only command 14, maybe 13 at that power level, or at that boost level. The problem is, and you'll start to see this pattern, the timing is much less, but the command AFR is the same. The knock sensor sensitivities are the same. I think that the multiplier might be slightly different with the red-eye and the Demon, but they're not that far removed from each other, especially when you're looking at the base voltages, and they are identical. So, well, what are we really talking about? Well, we're talking about a combination that has significantly less timing for any specific amount of airflow going through the engine. That means less power overall. Now, the next question is, well, what happens when you add the timing back into the car? Well, it knocks, has a higher discharge temperature. There are thermal issues all over the place when you start talking about the red-eye and the Demon. They just run into thermal blocks all over the place. So that's one of the reasons why the timing is significantly less from the factory for one car versus another. Can you get away with running more boost? Yeah, you can, but again, you're talking about higher temperatures even out of the 238, so which is the stock Hellcat. So just some things to consider, some things to think about. You can get away with it, but you're not getting away with it the way that you think. At the same boost levels, you'll just be making about the same power and not much more. And understand this too, guys. The difference between a Hellcat and a Red Eye, or a Hellcat and a Demon on 93 octane on the dyno, is only about 50 horsepower on a Mustang dyno. So take that information and do whatever you will with it, but just understand that that's a car making about 4 pounds more boost, a minimum of 3 pounds more boost than the stock Hellcat, but yet it's only making about 50 more horsepower. Think about that for a minute. The reason why? Less timing. So that's why that is. You know, the other thing too is when you go to put the extra timing in the car, they don't really respond the way that you would think. They don't just go, hey, more timing, and start making a lot more power. They just don't work out. It didn't work out that way. They don't, because there's issues with the actual supercharger inertia, which is higher on the two. I could really nerd you guys out to death on this, going into how the superchargers are designed and all that, but that's just kind of how everything works out. But again, okay, fuck it. So you have supercharger inertia, you have a rotor package simply heavier, takes more power to accelerate it than it does for the 238. That's one of the reasons why you don't see the power up top, especially in the upper mid-range. The delta is not as high as you would think that it would be, whereas they do make better torque down low. Again, the discharge temperature being higher is another reason for that issue. So you start to add this thing up and you can kind of see where I'm going with it. But hopefully that answers the questions. It has more to do with timing than anything else. Speed Freak 93, bring the Camaro in the garage one night. We all love hot rods. Sounds cool, man. I need to. As a matter of fact, it may be in the garage for the next show. Rip saying, what would I actually gain from getting rid of my cats on my Hellcat if I gain anything from it? You won't gain anything, man. I hate to tell you. If you bought cats for the performance gain, it's just really not there. You'll get a little bit of consistency out of it, though, in terms of catalytic converter over temp mode. You'll be able to take advantage of that not coming into effect. So in the quarter mile, you may pick up a quarter of a tenth, maybe half of a tenth, only because your cat over temp would be shut off or numbed. But in terms of actual power that you're going to pick up, any ET that you're going to pick up, you just won't see anything out of it, which is a good thing. Catalyst is asking, what's the most overrated mod and the most underrated mod? I'm going to start out with the good news first. The most underrated mod, transmission tuning. The most overrated mod, cold air intakes. Or blower spacers. Sean E's asking, how bad does a Hellcat smell with, how bad do you get the fuel smell without cats? Because I'm reluctant to get rid of my cats, but he doesn't want it to smell bad. They're all going to be pretty ripe on startup. So that's really where you're going to notice it the most. Driving down the road, though, you're not really going to tell. And if it's sitting there idling in your garage, yeah, you can tell. But again, all of them are always going to default rich on startup. So keep that in the back of your mind if you think about taking these things off, especially if you fire your car up and let it warm up in your garage. You're going to want to back it about halfway out of your garage before you put it in park to let it warm up after you light it up. Let's see. Rip saying, I would say an intake is the most overrated. That's on the top of the list. That or one of those fake turbo fans that go into your intake. Man, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Wait, what about the one that you stick in your tailpipe that whistles? Woo, woo! You don't want any of that? Let's see. Let's make sure he's laughing at it. Albert saying, found a gas station with race gas. I like it, but at $9.89 a gallon, damn. Means it's like an extra 130 bucks a month to keep the octane a little higher than 93. Am I better off getting a meth kit? Won't be tuning for either. Yeah, I mean, that or just run a little bit of Boostain or Torco. I mean, you're good to go with something like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're already tuned and you're a little bit on the edge, then you're going to have to get it through fuel or an additive. Again, you start looking at meth injection and it works. I mean, that's the problem with meth is that it absolutely does work. But you get guys that end up hanging on the meth specifically for their octane needs, and it's not the best way to go about it. So then you'll have other guys say, well, it cools down the inlet charge. Yeah, sort of, but it saturates the inlet charge. And then you run into a distribution issue, which is my biggest deal with that stuff, by the way. Never really have gotten into meth injection, so I'm glad you brought it up. But when the meth is sprayed into the supercharger, the issue is that it's atomized going into the supercharger, and then the supercharger itself is a nucleation site, as well as the throttle body and everything else that it's going to hit before it goes through gets through the runners and into the car's combustion chamber. So what started off as this atomized mist is now big globs of meth, which is not good for combustion. It doesn't really help you a lot, and but it does help. It's not as efficient anymore at this point as opposed to a direct port, in other words. But then you also get into a distribution issue with, okay, well, is number 7 and number 8 getting more meth, but number 1 and number 2 not getting quite as much? Which cylinder is not getting how much meth that it needs? There's so many just things that'll start going through your head. You just look at the meth and you go, no, I don't want to do it. So yeah, if race gas is a bit out of the question, get you some Torco or get you some Boostain. Keep that stuff in boxes so that you can at least make sure you've got something in the tank that'll work. But yeah, I would steer clear of the meth. I don't know, man. I've got this thing. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Let's see. Sean's saying, I'm going to hit the sack with the trans tune at 309s. How much air are you going to need to start getting to below that 1047 maybe next month? I would like to. I would like to see it if we just have a little bit cooler temps for Mopar Fest. It'd be fun to hit it at that. But doubt it very seriously. Plus, I need a very well prepped track. So I'm going to say that it's going to need something like density altitude around 1500 to really start to get the ETs down under that 1040 range, and then or into the 1040 range. At 0, I would expect to be low 40s, high 30s, maybe even deeper into the 30s, and anything negative, I'm hoping that it'll go 20s. Shooting for teens, but aiming for the stars, and if we hit the moon, we're doing good. SRT8 Nate, tires used to be underrated mod, but people seem to be catching on. Tires should be a necessary, like a mandatory mod. So, yeah, if you haven't caught on to that just yet, you're not driving the car right. That's for sure. Albert saying, thanks B, race gas and Boostain it is. You the man. Thank you, sir. Hope I helped, if nothing else. Rip is saying, so like I said before, my fastest time I Hellcat with a 20-inch Mickey Thompson ET Street SS tires at 1099. In order to get any faster, do I think I need 18s or 17s? Man, it depends on the track prep and if the car is dead hooking, but 17s are certainly going to help you. You get the benefit of a little bit better gearing, only because the tire is a little bit shorter, and traction is going to be better. So with that 17 than it is with the 20. But if you're dead hooking and you got like radial prep, then stick with what you got. 17s may make it more consistent for you though. If you say it's definitely not dead hooking, then you need a different tire setup on the back, brother. SRT8 Nate, is a tune required with Boostain? Not at all. Not at all. Riff said, I need to launch pretty soft in order to not spin. Yeah, if you need to launch it soft, you can definitely launch a lot harder with the 17s. No doubt about it. Well, guys, we are coming up on 2 hours. I got to hit the rack, got to wake up early in the morning. I want to thank everybody for hanging out, all my contributors. Thank you so very much. We hopefully answered your questions, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next one. And that is going to be a wrap for this one. Y'all have a fantastic week. Hope you had a great Monday, and we will see you next time. Hopefully get some footage from Mopar Fest as well. So, at any rate, SRTA Nate's got the arms up. I like it. Rift is out. You guys have a great one. Talk to you soon. Adios.